Welcome to Chills, Kills, and Thrills, where every nightfall brings a new mystery. We post a new story every night to help you drift into sleep, if you dare. If you love eerie whispers, unsolved crimes, and tales that keep you glancing over your shoulder, make sure to like, subscribe, and settle in. Tonight, we dive into the haunting disappearance of Evelyn Hart. The disappearance in Oregon. In the quiet town of Willow Creek, nestled in the moss-draped mountains of Oregon, the fog rolls in thick at dusk, wrapping its tendrils around the towering pines like a secret. It was in this town, known for its peaceful rhythms and whispering woods, that Evelyn Hart vanished without a trace, leaving behind only silence, mystery, and a town forever changed. Evelyn was 32, a schoolteacher with a warm smile and a heart full of compassion. She lived alone in a modest stone cottage on the outer edge of town, where the woods began. She had a cat named Thistle, a garden of wild herbs, and a bookshelf full of well-worn mysteries. Her students adored her. She was the kind of teacher who brought books to life, who stayed after class to help struggling readers, who showed up to school plays with flowers, and always remembered birthdays. Every morning, Evelyn walked to school, humming softly to herself, her breath misting in the chill air. She wore scarves in the winter, floral dresses in the spring, and her perfume, always lavender, lingered gently in the hallways. She had lived in Willow Creek her whole life, and everyone thought they knew her. But when she vanished, they realized just how little they truly did. It was the evening of October 17th. Evelyn was due at a school board meeting at Town Hall, a short walk from her home. The last person to see her was Mrs. Galloway, an elderly neighbor who waved at her from a porch swing as Evelyn passed by just before sunset. She wore a green wool coat, carried a leather-bound notebook, and smiled politely as always. She looked calm, content, completely unaware that she was stepping into legend. Evelyn never arrived at the meeting. Her absence raised eyebrows, but it wasn't until the following morning that concern turned to panic. She didn't show up for her first period literature class. Her students waited, whispering. Eventually, the principal, Mr. Halverson, checked her cottage. The door was locked, lights off. He called the sheriff. Sheriff Albright, a man who had known Evelyn since she was a child, led the investigation. Her car was in the driveway. Her purse was on the kitchen table, along with her favorite teacup, still holding cold chamomile. Her phone was on the charger. No signs of struggle, no broken windows. The bed was neatly made. Her cat Thistle meowed anxiously, pacing at the front door. The only thing missing was Evelyn. The town responded with urgency. Flyers were posted. Volunteers searched the woods. Dogs were brought in. Drones flew overhead, but nothing surfaced. Not a footprint, not a shred of clothing, not even a hair. The forest, it seemed, had swallowed her whole. Rumors began immediately. Some whispered about a drifter seen walking the roads that week. Others mentioned Evelyn's ex-boyfriend, now living out of state. A few murmured about the woods, the old stories passed down through generations of strange figures and flickering lights in the trees. Then, in late December, the snow came. Willow Creek became a quiet, frozen landscape. Hope dimmed. But on January 6th, 3 months to the day after Evelyn vanished, a hunter named Thomas Green discovered a clearing deep in the woods, miles from any trail. There, half buried beneath snow and leaves, was Evelyn's notebook. The leather cover was scratched, Most of the pages were soaked and illegible, but one phrase stood out, scrawled in shaking pen. "He watches from the trees." The notebook reignited the case. State police were brought in. Psychics reached out. The FBI analyzed handwriting. But no new leads came. Nothing else was found in that clearing. No footprints, no blood, no torn fabric, just the notebook. From that point on, the town changed. Parents picked up their children in groups. Elderly residents double-locked their doors. Hikers stopped venturing past the first ridge. And every year, on October 17th, candles were placed on Evelyn's porch. No one dared to enter, but no one forgot. Sheriff Albright never gave up. In his home office, he kept a board dedicated to Evelyn's case. Photos, maps, notes, theories. He once told a journalist that it felt like Evelyn was trying to speak from wherever she was, that every whisper of wind in the trees might be her voice. End of part 1. Title: The Disappearance of Evelyn Hart. Part 2. Over time, more strange occurrences were reported in Willow Creek. Hikers getting lost for hours, only to find themselves right back at their starting point. Distant humming in the forest at night. Animals refusing to enter certain parts of the woods. One woman, a mail carrier named Lisa Graham, claimed she saw a figure standing motionless among the trees, tall, shadowy, watching. When she blinked, it was gone. In 2020, a podcast called Vanished in the Pines covered Evelyn's case. It drew national attention. Dozens of amateur sleuths visited Willow Creek, trying to solve the mystery, but none found anything new. One visitor, a man named Colin Reyes, documented his trip online. In his final video, recorded in the clearing where the notebook was found, he said, "It's quiet here, too quiet, like the forest is listening." That video abruptly ends with static. Colin hasn't posted since. As time went on, other theories emerged. One came from a retired forest ranger, Walter Sims, who said the forest around Willow Creek had always been odd. He recalled a time in the 1980s when a group of scouts had gotten lost for an entire day, only to be found asleep in a grove with no memory of how they got there. He said the compass needles spun in circles, that radios went dead, and that he once saw a tree bleed sap as red as blood. Walter believed the woods were alive in a way people didn't understand, that Evelyn hadn't just vanished, but had been taken, drawn in by something ancient, something old enough to be patient. By 2023, the cottage was still uninhabited. Local teens dared each other to approach it, but none made it past the porch. One summer night, a boy named Ricky Vaughan live-streamed his attempt to enter. The camera flickered as he crossed the threshold. The last thing he said before the feed cut was, "It smells like lavender." He was found the next morning, sitting on the porch swing, unresponsive and staring into the woods. He never spoke again. The authorities investigated, but they found no signs of foul play, just an overwhelming sense of unease. And still, the stories continue. Every so often, someone claims to see a figure in the forest with a green wool coat, or hear humming, or find an old weathered notebook lying in the underbrush, only for it to vanish when they return. One local historian, Marjorie Kent, began collecting reports. Her archives now hold over 200 personal accounts of strange phenomena, all within a 5-mile radius of Evelyn's last known location. She believes that what happened to Evelyn is part of a larger pattern, that once every few decades someone disappears, And always the same clues remain. The fog, the humming, and the phrase, "He watches from the trees." Marjorie wrote a book, but no publisher would take it. Too unbelievable, they said. Too strange. She released it online instead. It gained a cult following. Now every October, true crime enthusiasts and supernatural believers descend on Willow Creek. They hold vigils. They walk the trails. They camp near the clearing. Most leave with nothing but stories. A few don't leave at all. And Evelyn? Her story remains the heart of it all. A teacher, a friend, a woman with a kind soul who disappeared into the shadows of the forest, leaving only questions behind. Her face still hangs on the bulletin board in the sheriff's office. Her name is still whispered on foggy nights. And somewhere, out beyond the edge of the last trail, where the pine needles blanket the earth like velvet and the wind never quite dies down, there is a place where the trees seem taller, older, watching. And maybe, just maybe, Evelyn is still there, watching too.